So this is going to be my metal lathe table, which this structure here was half of an old rejected thing that had wooden planks in there, so I cut half of it off, and then I put in these scrap metal bits which come not quite flush. I've tried to slice off all the pokey bits, and then what I'm going to do next is weld these things in there. Then I'm going to put this all around and a sheet of metal on top here. So hopefully that will be definitely quite heavy, and hopefully it'll also be pretty level and correct. Okay. So this abortive attempt at welding. So what I first tried to do, and you can see there, this was my first attempt. Actually, this was my first attempt there, because this thing is so rusty that it doesn't make a contact with the arc welder. So I put a little piece of metal there to like join this, and then I put another strip to keep them all joined. Tried to do the same on the other side, and it held just enough that I could turn the table around. And then what I did is I put this angle iron on top, and you won't be able to see the weld there, it's a bit nasty anyway. But with this angle iron on top and a weld here, and this is my last weld, so this is the best one. It holds all the slats in place. And what I'm going to do is turn it around, clean it off with a grinder so it's all a bit smoother. And the metal welds are enough to hold it in place, but what I'll probably do is cut out a nice piece of metal that fits on the top, drill through it, and put bolts down, because the welding basically looks like crap. Oh, and also, see this bit here? What I tried to do there, because I noticed that the weld itself, the welding rod itself is not enough to like link it. So I tried to put a piece of metal in here as something that would join the two things together, but didn't work because it's quite loose. So the other thing I tried to do was to use this as something that you would be able to weld on as a strip that can hold stuff. But again, it's a rusty little piece of bar, and unless I grind it clean or something, this doesn't make contact with the arc welder. Probably also because my arc welder is only 140 watts, and originally, before I bought one, a guy said, look, try and get at least a 400 watt one. But they're about 3 times the price, and for what I needed, this is probably good enough. Not going to win any welding prizes for the look of it, but it works, so good enough for me. So despite the ugly looking thing, we shaved it down a little bit there, and this is the new sheet that I put on, which is a little bit bowed, as you can see. That's because there is a tiny step between the edge of this and the filling, but I'm gonna put more bolts there and more bolts there, and it'll be a pretty level surface. And this bit is gonna come up to be the shield for all the little chips, and that bit's gonna go down. So hopefully I'll be able to bend that in a way that doesn't look too horrible. And that's the metal lathe tabletop coming along. I'll put the legs on maybe tomorrow if I manage. That's it for now. Yeah. Okay, so I put in the other bolts all around to make it easier to bend that down and this up. And I've managed to put this on a makeshift cart because it's really heavy, and I think once I put the legs on, I'm probably not going to be moving this very much. So next step will be the legs. Right, and here we have the almost fully completed metal lathe table. The legs are now on, and this took a longer time than I thought because I had a first abortive attempt. You see this bracket here, which looks like it's been sort of welded on, but in reality it was really riveted on with like 4 rivets. I gotta say, I do like the rivet gun, and you can see the mark where the leg used to be, because what I've done is I riveted the bracket onto the metal thing, and then on this side I've put 2 rivets in there holding the leg up, and then I've tried to weld the leg up here. But as I said before, this table is really heavy, and you see I've done that on all 4 corners. And when I tried to turn the table over to get it on its legs, the 2 legs at the back or at the front, I can't remember, just snapped off, and I realized, okay, these rivets are just nowhere near enough. The last thing you want to be doing is working on this, and it breaks. It's like probably over 100 kilos of metal on you. So I came up with this other, luckily, you see that the frame that I had used has got this section of metal in there, and it just so happens that it was just the right size to fit this tube in. And then what I did, I just with the little grinder, with the little cutting grinder, I cut out sort of a hole that you can fit the leg in and hammered it in, and then put 2 bolts to hold it in place. Try to level it out as best I can, but the last thing that needs to be done really is to make sure that each leg is exactly the same length, and at the bottom it probably needs a little bit of a disc cutter to like level it off, because you can see the legs are angled, but the bottom of the tube is still the original. So that's going to be a little job. I'll have to put the table on its side and so on. But the back shield is folded into position. Folding the front bit down is proving to be quite difficult, because it can handle my whole weight without bending at all. So I'm going to probably either have to score it very slightly with a grinding machine, just pull a line across, or I don't know, or just add more weight to bend it down. I bent this by just putting the table on its back and using my own weight and stepping on here to bend it. This little corner here is a bit jiggled. It bothers me. I will straighten it out with a pair of pliers soon. But that's basically it. I mean, the table is essentially done. I'm now just waiting for the lathe. I'm going to level the table out by cleaning up the bottom of the legs and measuring it properly. And then it will be level. And the next thing is waiting for the lathe, and when the lathe comes in, bolting it down in place. It was a good little project, but I'd say the one thing you do need to do when you're working with metal: wear your eye protection, wear thicker clothing like you see here, because the first day I was just working in an extremely thin t-shirt, and apart from the fact that the mosquitoes got a hold of me, when I was grinding with the little grinder, all the little metal bits, like I didn't realize it at the time, but it caused all these burns. It looks like I've been hit by a shotgun pellets. So yeah, use your ear protection, your eye protection, and some thick clothing. I know, basic stuff, but hey, we test the limits of health and safety here at the Kurganet. So that's all I got for you now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll make more videos about what happens when I do get the lathe, and how I invariably will begin to screw that up at first, but hopefully get better with time. That's it for now.